Constitution. Now, remember, Article 4 was federal and interstate relations. We talked about, the last thing I talked about, and maybe we didn't get all those down. Obligations that the national government has to the states. Do you have that in your notes?
No.
Yeah, I seem to remember we didn't quite finish Article 4. So let us do that now. What's the last thing you have in your notes?
60-day representative.
Okay. Adding new house or states to the union. Yes? Okay. So one of the, there are certain obligations that the national government has to the states because the national government is superior, it is supreme. And one of those is to ensure that people that live in the states have representative government. So in the state of Kansas, we get to elect our leaders. Yes? And we have a state legislature, we have a mayor, city council, governor, yeah, representative government. All 50 states have that, huh? Lieutenant governor, okay. Now, other obligations is that the national government is supposed to protect the states from invasion or domestic violence. Okay? That is an obligation the national government has to the states. Now, you guys, we can argue if you want over whether what's happening or what has happened over the last 3 years at our southern border is an invasion or not. We can have that argument. What's up, Mattis? Yes. Al? Back-to-back days. You guys have a 2-day test?
Yeah, that was the worst test ever.
You haven't taken this one yet. We'll compare after you take my second test. Okay?
I don't think anything can be worse than that.
We'll see.
Is yours curved? Oh.
There are people in this class that will not allow it to be curved.
Well, there's different types of curves.
Yeah. Well, I only have one kind of curve. If somebody aces it, there's no curve.
But if someone doesn't, there will be.
No, not necessarily.
But if we all got abs.
I'm not going to give you a crutch. I'm not giving you an excuse not to study and rely on other people to do well. All right, I'm recording. Let's go to work. Okay. Another obligation, the last obligation that the national government has to the states is this. That the national government has to respect the state's territorial integrity. National government must respect the state's territorial integrity, meaning that this national government cannot change the border of the states unless they give them permission. The states can't change their own borders without permission from the national government either. Now, in the case of Virginia, when they seceded from the Union during the Civil War, the national government said, well, you're not a state anymore. We don't need your permission. We're going to carve up your state and create a new one out of it, called West Virginia. Okay? That's the last time that's happened. It doesn't happen because it's not allowed to happen. Okay? So, that cinches up Article 4 of the Constitution. Move Article 5. Now, Article 5 is very simple. They said, you know what we ought to do in this new Constitution? We ought to put in a way to change it without having to start over from scratch. And, you know, they did make that promise about putting a Bill of Rights in it. So we're going to need a process to do that. So they put in Article 5 of the Constitution, the amendment process. Now, guys, if you look at page 53, this is all laid out for you on page 53. However, that looks complicated. you just look at it, it's like a full page of stuff. You're like, dang, that's a lot to learn. No, it's not, because I got it all right here, tied up in a nice bow for you. So I have condensed page 53 into this right here. You're welcome. Okay? Now, the amendment process. There are two ways to propose an amendment, and there are two ways to ratify an amendment. The most common is starting. So, all 27 amendments have been proposed by this method, this top method. Majority of both houses of Congress vote to propose an amendment to the Constitution. This is how the Bill of Rights was proposed and every other amendment since. Now they said, you know what? We ought to be safe and have another way to do it just in case, especially if you were going to make an amendment about Congress. Like term limits on Congress, which are not in the Constitution. They said, well, maybe one day they'll want to do that. So let's give them another way to do it. And that looks like this. 2/3 of the states send delegates to a national convention of the states for the purposes of proposing a constitutional amendment or amendments. I've talked about this, yes? This is my cult, the Convention of the States, okay? We need help. See, it's Spangles, Thursday night. Oh, I don't know. I was making that up. But I can find out. I get text messages. Oh. I get text messages from Nikki Haley. I get text messages from Donald Trump.
You got a text message from Porter, no?
What's wrong?
I don't know where he's at.
He's in your class?
Well, he's supposed to.
Maybe you have an appointment.
Yeah. Just knew I was going.
Do you know Porter Mill?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is he in there? But he, oh. Okay, we'll keep an eye out.
He's good.
Okay. Mr. Lawler, Lonnie Lawler, he used to be in the social studies department. He taught world history and was the head basketball coach.
Head basketball?
Head basketball.
How long is it? He looks like a basketball.
So Dominic's been here for how many? 4 years?
500.
His first year, he won a state championship. That was 2019, right?
What a chicken.
Yeah, our first ever state championship.
It was his first year.
I think it was his first year.
5
5 years?
Isn't he right over there? He's over now.
Yeah, Mr. Lawler was the head basketball coach at Derby before he came here. And then here. And then he went to Halstead. Maybe Halstead? Or there's another age. What's the other age?
Halstead.
Halstead or Hayes. Yeah. That's probably Halstead. Now he's subbing.
Said it.
Subbing.
Yes, he said it.
Okay. So what were we talking about? We got through that, right? Okay. Conventions. Yes, sir. Liam.
I know it's a little bit off topic.
No
but
way.
You heard about like the 2025 plan or something.
Yeah,
like
actually, Sophia Wynn brought that up to me during House today.
that? Yeah, because she was talking to me about that during Logic. Like, what is that all like banning interracial marriage and like
What?
Dude,
what? Is that like an actual thing?
Listen, it's a freaking scare tactic. Is what it is. Yeah. There is a thing called 2025, and you can go on their website and read about everything they want to do. And nowhere does it say banning interracial marriages.
Is the 2020? I didn't do any of my own.
It's just it's like conservatives like a plan of action once if Trump wins. Okay? Just like things to improve the country. That don't include banning gay marriage or interracial marriage or anything like that. You can't do that. You understand? You can't do that. It takes an act of Congress. It takes a constitutional amendment, something like that. Trump can't just come in and say, well, there's no more biracial marriage or interracial marriage. You can't do that. So stop propagating BS. Say that right?
That's not popping. That's just fancy language.
Yeah. Did anybody write down that quote? Come on.
So what's with the 27 out of 27?
All 27 amendments have been proposed to that amendment.
Oh, I got you.
So you don't need Congress to pass an amendment?
Nope.
State convention.
Option 2.
So that's how we get from.
Exactly.
That's how someone.
Exactly. Yes. And repeal the 16th and 17th amendment.
Oh, so you can repeal and pass.
Yeah. Well, you got to propose it. So there's 2 ways to propose, and that is one way too. Okay. 2 ways to ratify. Yes. The most common way to ratify, which was 26 of 27 times, was through 3/4 of the state's legislature. So this is Topeka, Tallahassee, Albany, Austin. You need 38 state legislatures to approve the amendment, to ratify. Now, only one has been ratified through option 2, which is through state convention. What is a state convention, Mr. Ebright? Kansas. Now, somebody in here needs to make Coach Lawbon proud. Did anybody take Kansas Studies their freshman year? Okay. You're on the spot right now. How many counties are there in the state of Kansas?
I don't know.
You had to memorize them.
We had to memorize them like 10 at a time.
Is it over 50?
Yes.
Over
124.
Listen,
Like 7.
you know Carter Syward? He nailed it this morning. Yes. Are you back in class? Yeah. Have you been roaming the halls?
No, I was in bed.
Lawler's throwing you under.
Yeah, I know he is.
You're fine. He's just being weird. Freaking my students out. Did I tell you the number yet? No. Grace, do you know? Paige? 2. Counties? Julia! Tell Celine to face the front and pay attention. Liam, you're bad
105.
influence. Huh?
105.
Where are you pulling that out?
Please you pull that in.
In my pocket.
It's 105. Okay? All right. Where's Aiden when we need him?
I said 105.
Shut up, Nathan. Now let's say this is 105. Okay? I know it's not 105. And don't try and count it, you weirdos. Now, you got it.
That's great.
You can't stop yourself now, can you?
No, he said it.
You got it.
Okay. You ever heard of a caucus? Like the Iowa caucus. Now, in 2008, I picked up this bumper sticker. Put it, DJ. This bumper sticker at the Kansas Sedgwick County caucus. There was one in 08, there was one in 12, there was one in 16, there was one in 2020. In 2024, next month, on March 19th, Kansas will host a primary, not a caucus. Okay? Which is just like a regular election. Now, if you are registered to vote as a Republican, you'll be able to get to choose from Nikki Haley or Donald Trump, supposing she's still on the ballot. Or if you're a registered Democrat, you can vote for Joe Biden or Marianne Williamson or that other dude, Phillips, okay? If you're registered as an independent, you don't get to play. You stay home. We don't need you moderates around. You don't get to play. Now, a caucus looks like this. In every county, here's ours, Sedgwick, okay? In every county, you have a meeting, which is a caucus where you get your Republicans together, you get the Democrats together, and whoever wins the most counties, so Trump or Nikki Haley, okay? Whoever wins the most counties, to be 53, wins the caucus. In the case of the state conventions, for the purposes of ratifying constitutional amendments, which has only been done once, if you get 53 counties to approve it, bam, you have ratified this amendment. You got it? Now, let me give you a hint as to which of the 27 amendments was ratified through this method. Do you already know? Okay, well, let me just have some fun. Like they just wanted to have some fun.
What?
You know, while we're ratifying this amendment, we might as well have a rip-roaring good time doing it. 21. Yeah. The repeal of prohibition was done through this method. Okay, this method. You need 38 states to do it, and I'm not even sure Kansas is one of those 38. There are a bunch of Bible beaters over here that, you know, with dry counties and so forth, no Sunday liquor sales and stuff like that until like 10 years ago. Okay. Yeah, until about 10 years ago, they didn't sell liquor on Sundays. No, not in the state of Kansas.
Oh, really? 10 years ago?
Yes. Liquor stores were closed on Sundays. Beer sections were, you couldn't buy beer at the grocery store or Quick Trip. Yeah. Yeah. When I was in college in Florida,
I remember them.
my junior college was the same way. Like if you wanted beer on Sunday, you had to go to the next county over. Dry county. So, yeah. You're Bible beaters. All right? Yeah. Okay, so you got it? 2 ways to ratify, 2 ways to propose, 2 ways to ratify. Which is the most common way to propose and ratify an amendment? The top 2 of both of them, because it's propose and ratify. Yes? Can you tell me that on the test?
Good thing.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Okay, now, guys, I'm going to wait till tomorrow to actually, we're going to start learning the amendments, but I want to talk about a couple of amendments that have been proposed but not ratified. Okay, this is kind of an interesting discussion. So first thing I want to talk about was, you know, the original Bill of Rights they proposed 12 amendments, but only 10 were ratified. Now in the modern era, if you propose an amendment today, you have 7 years till that amendment sunsets. So after 7 years, if it's not ratified, the sun sets and you got to start over from scratch. Does that make sense? If you heard this term before, sunset, now you have it. You know what it means. Okay. Now, but back in 1790 or 89, when they proposed the Bill of Rights, 12 of them, 2 didn't get ratified. And so they've basically been floating around in what some would call constitutional purgatory, never being ratified, never getting to go to heaven. Okay? Now, in 1986, there was a college student at the University of Texas that wrote a paper for his political science class, much like this, And he said that this one amendment that wasn't ratified should have been ratified with the original 10. This student named Gregory Watson got a C on the paper. And he was upset about it because he thought he had a valid point. Now, let me tell you what this amendment said. It said, well, it dealt with congressional pay. You guys know who sets Congress's pay? Congress. Who wants that job where you can set your own pay? It's kind of nice. Now, if you start your own business, your business flourishes, you can pay yourself as much as you want. But other than that, somebody else is determining what you make. Yes? So Congress gets to do this. So the amendment would have said, if Congress gives itself a pay raise, that pay raise cannot go into effect until an election has taken place. So those 435 members of the House, does anybody know how much they make? $174,000 a year. 2-year terms for the members, for the House members, yes? So if they say they raise their salary to $300,000, I don't like the distractions I'm getting right now. I really don't. If they raise their pay to $300,000, what can we do about it? You got that can't go into effect until an election takes place. We can throw them all out and they never get that raise. Now the next people we elect, they get the raise. Okay, but we can kick them out. Now the Senate, that's harder to do because they're 6-year terms and they're staggered 2-year, 2-year, 2-year. Only 1/3 of the Senate is up for election every 2 years. Talk more about that later. But so Gregory Watson, we got to see on a paper, made it his life's mission over the next 6 years to go around to get 38 state legislatures to ratify this amendment that was proposed in 1789. And in 1991, the 27th Amendment was ratified. And Gregory Watson got the last laugh on that loser professor that gave him a seat. Okay? Now, you can't tell me that one person can't make a difference. All right? That kid made a difference. Right? And his name's in textbooks now. All right? That's how I learned about it. I know we don't use one, but now you know about it. Next amendment I want to talk about. Raise your hand if you agree with this statement. There ought to be a law, or there ought to be a penalty for people that take this flag and burn it and protest. There ought to be a penalty for people that take that flag, throw it down on the ground, stomp on it, defecate it, desecrate it. There ought to be a penalty. You guys agree with that? You guys don't like the flag? What's wrong with you? Who, what? Truman's saying free speech.
That flag is the reason you have this.
Oh, let's go.
That flag and the people.
It's on. Grace, where you at? Huh? Paige, where you at? Roberta, what you think about this? Just a piece of cloth. What's it represent?
Hundreds of thousands of people died or spent years of their life.
Sacrificing on behalf of what that stands for. Now, listen, when I see somebody burning the flag or even kneeling during the national anthem, personally, guys, that pisses me off. If I see somebody burning the American flag in protest, I personally like to punch them in the nose. But right after I punch them in the nose, I'd also die for the right to do what they're doing. because that is true freedom. So my feelings, or your feelings, Liam, for the flag, do not trump freedom of expression, which is an extension of freedom of speech. What's more important? You know what I mean? Now, if you took a poll and just to ask the American people, you know, should there be a penalty? Should there be a law? I bet you get close to 50% of the population say yes. But after you talk to them about it a little bit and say, well, you know, this flag actually does stand for your right to do that, then people probably come to their senses. So, but, you know, it's a passion thing. I mean, I love the flag. I get the chills. You know what I mean? When somebody's singing the national anthem. I love our country. And so, and I'm not trying to place, I'm more patriotic than somebody. I hate that. I'm not doing that. Okay, that bothers me when people do that. Okay, I'm not going to wear the American flag suit to say I'm more patriotic than you. Now, if somebody wants to wear a frickin' American flag outfit, I don't care either. Okay, now you're not supposed to do that. You understand? There's certain ways that you should treat the flag with respect. So if you want to respect the flag, you respect the flag. If somebody else doesn't, you can say something to them. You might not want to start a fight with somebody over it, but, you know, hey, have a little respect type of thing. You're like, what? What'd you say? Now you got to fight. All right, so choose your own poison. Okay? Now, so that didn't become an amendment, but it was seriously considered. Okay? I got one more for you. And this is where things get fun. In the 1970s, women had had enough of this male patriarchal society. The male chauvinist pigs that felt women, their only place was in the kitchen, barefoot and pregnant. They had had enough, and they started burning their bras. Call this feminism. Why are they burning bras? Because they're instruments of male domination of women. You guys remember the corset? You guys know what a corset is? Where they used to like make women like suck this all in right here. You guys know what I'm talking about? Push everything up and everything in and up, right? Systematic of male oppression of women. Now, the women wanted the Equal Rights Amendment in the 1970s. Equal rights for who? Women. Well, wait a second, Mr. Ebright. You said in the 14th Amendment that all citizens have equal protection under the law. I told you that, right? So we're going to be talking about 14th Amendment all semester. But I didn't tell you what it says right after that. With respect to race, national origin, ethnicity, or religion. What it doesn't say is gender. Okay. So this is why women were pushing for the Equal Rights Amendment in the 1970s, in early 80s. Okay. Now, here's the thing, guys. Equal rights. Have any of you guys heard this number thrown about? That women make 72 cents on the dollar of what men make. You've heard this before? Okay. That is not a very good statistic. What percentage of women in the United States are bricklayers? Like, of all the bricklayers, what percentage are women? 1%. Of all the construction workers in the United States, what percentage are women? 5. Okay? Of nurses, what percentage are men? I would say probably close to 20%. Okay? Engineers, what percentage are women? I don't think you're to 30 yet. maybe 20, maybe. They're catching up. Ladies are catching up. Okay? Right now, in medical schools all across this country, are there more women in medical school or men in medical school? There are more women in medical school than there are men in medical school. Now, my daughter, as some of you know, might remember Lily, she is at an engineering college. So every student at the college is an engineering student. It's 75% male, 25% female. At that Institute of Technology where she goes to school, there were 0 women in 1986. Now there's 25%. Okay. Good thing for Lily, she gets to pick from 75% guys. The other nice thing is they're all nerds. Okay. Which is fine. Okay. Now, let's listen. If you want to go to a school, if you feel like, man, I'm pretty nerdy, you want to go to school where there's other nerdy students, go to Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. You drive around that campus, it's like science camp, year-round. That's funny. Hey, listen. My wife is a nerd. My wife is a band geek. Okay. I love you guys. I love you. I love you. I love you if you're a nerd. I love you if you're a jock. I don't care. Okay, I don't care. When I was in high school, I was friends with everybody. The band kids, the kids in the play, I was friends with them. I was friends with the freaks. I was friends with the jocks. You guys know the freaks, right? You guys seen Breakfast Club?
Yeah.
Have you seen Breakfast Club? Yeah. You got everybody in there, right? The cheerleader, weird girl, the nerd. Yeah, it's fantastic. The jock. You guys haven't seen that. Yeah. Sorry. What am I talking about? I'm talking about women's rights. Okay. Now listen. How much time I got?
7.
Where do I want to take this? Really, what I want to do is get a rise out of girls in here. Okay. Okay. All right, ladies. So here's the fact. Men and women go into different careers, yes? So trying to throw this 72% on the dollar stuff, in my opinion, is BS. Okay? Again, people propagating BS. That's second time today. Yes? Olivia, you want to go? You got something to say? Come on. I just thought you looked mad. That's your RBF going on? What? Never. Hey. What? Now she smiles.
Let's go.
Leave Julia alone.
Start talking to me.
Julia, don't act all innocent. I know how you are.
She goes, I need to find you a roommate. And I'm like, And I said, I might just go random. And then she pulled up a one and she said, and
So this is what's going on in the back of my classroom.
What?
Seating chart?
No.
Who are you texting? It's right there. All right, so listen, what happened? Remember Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896. Separate is equal, right? Yes. Okay. Now, so it was okay to segregate people based on race. Okay to segregate people based on gender. It's okay to segregate people based on religion and other things. Okay? Now, in 1954, what case?
Brown versus Board of Education.
Brown said separate is not Equal. Yes? Okay. So when this amendment was proposed for equal rights for women in the 1970s, it's 7 years to ratify. It was proposed. They needed 38 states. They got 33. Hang on. Up to 7 years. They extended the time for ratification 2 more years. In that 2-year period, 5 states rescinded the ratification. And here's why. What does every male in this room have to do by the age of 18 that the women do not? Register for the selective service or the draft. What? 2 years, $250,000 fine. Now, where are men and women segregated in society? Down the hall, the restroom, the locker rooms, some dormitories. Some gyms are open only to women. When people realized that everything would have to be integrated or unisex, they started to question it, and women being eligible for the draft. Now, in the last 5 or 6 years, guys, with all the transgender stuff going on, we've kind of been exposed to this idea of men being in women's restrooms and so forth, and women in men's restrooms and stuff like that with the transgender stuff. Yes? We've kind of been exposed to this. Has there been pushback to that? Of course there has, okay? On both sides. So until we're ready for that day, guys, ladies, you have protections in our society. There are laws that protect you, but it's just not in the Constitution the way it is for men. And ladies, you can answer this question for me. Is the United States of America today a good place for women? Are some of you guys reading that book about Afghanistan right now?
Yes.
How is it for women there?
Yep.
So listen, there are more women in college than there are men. Yes? Let me take a quick poll. Raise your hand if in your family, mom makes more than dad. Okay, that number's going to keep going up. You understand that? Do you understand that? Especially with the women in this room. You guys are going to kill it. Okay? Now, I believe in you if that's what you want. Right? If that's what you want, you go get it. And can you do that? Do you believe that you can do that? Ladies, absolutely. We have done that for you. Please stop. Listen. At the same time that we've tried to help women in this country, we've done damage to men. You've heard of this thing called toxic masculinity. There is no toxic masculinity. There's just toxic. And there are women that are toxic, and there are men that are toxic. Masculinity is a good thing, and we need it. And when we keep tearing down our men, we hurt our society. And I'm frankly sick and tired of it. We need each other. And women, you need your men to be men. You don't want your men to be women. And gentlemen, you may not want your women to be men. I'm not saying that in a literal sense, you understand. You guys are old enough to handle this, right? Yes.
Okay, quick question. This sounds like a really dumb question. I've always wondered this, but I never asked it. Brown versus the Board of Education. They say Brown because his last name was actually Brown, or because like brown people?
Brown is the father of 3 daughters.
Okay, so last name.
Yes.
It was a genuine question.
No, I don't mind that. Okay, we can do both. Yes.
Both what?
What's the highest suicide rate in America? White men. What kind of depiction of their white men in pop culture? Not very good. Okay. All right. I'm off my soapbox.
That's gonna get
You think?
100%.